Hey, everyone. Hey, Jupiter. Hey,
Hi,
Kelvin.
Melody.
Hey, Happy New
Hello.
Year.
Happy
Hey,
New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah, so thanks for agreed to do this panel. Very excited to see everyone again. We're all in different places now. And really kick off this year with some really, your insights on investments and where this year is going. So super excited to kick it off. So maybe before we, so before we start, can you guys give a little bit of intro of who you are, where you work at, and what are you doing these days?
Sure, Jupiter, you want to go ahead first?
Okay, sure. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Melody. Thanks for having us. And I'm Jupiter from HashKey Capital. I'm responsible for research and investment in this blockchain investment firm. So we've been established for 2 years. We've been invested almost 50 projects in the blockchain space in the past 2 years. So it's quite very excited to join the Blockstack community and to welcome this new trend of blockchain application mass adoption in the future. I'm very excited to see the Stack 2.0 Mainnet be launched in the near future, and it will be a very milestone for the whole blockchain spaces. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you.
Right. Yeah, and hi, I'm Kelvin Koh. I'm one of the co-founders of the Spartan Group, which is a boutique advisory firm, as well as an investment firm. On the advisory side, we help crypto startups with fundraising, with M&A, as well as with consulting. And on the investment side, we currently have 2 funds. The first is a liquid strategy, while the second is a DeFi-focused venture strategy. So I'm the CIO for our asset management business. And prior to that, I worked at a traditional hedge fund called Indus Capital, which is based out of New York, around $7 billion. I was a partner there. And prior to that, I worked for 18 years at Goldman Sachs, where I was part of the research team and eventually became a director of research in Asia, as well as a partner of the firm. So today we're very excited to be here to talk about crypto and the new economy.
Yeah. Thank you. Very impressive backgrounds, guys. Thanks. My name is Melody. I am a partner and a co-founder together with Kelvin for the Spartan Group. And I mostly focus on advisory side of our business. So Blockstack is really where us, Spartan and HashKey, we started to collaborate. We both invest in the firm and as well as helping the previous Asia side of the fundraising. So we know the project and the team for a very long time. So, very excited to see the Stack 2.0 launch finally this year. I think the timing has been fantastic as Blockstack is building, solutions on building a layer, not a layer 2, but really anchoring security and applications on the Bitcoin blockchain. And 2020 has really been a fantastic year for Bitcoin to gain its mainstream awareness and adoption. So actually, so maybe Kelvin, I'm curious on your view. So you came into this space from a very traditional background. Right, and Bitcoin at that time, I guess when we started the company 3 years ago, really hasn't, gotten any mainstream attention. So do you think this year's change in BTC's perception, the market, and this runaway sort of performance in the past 6 months has been something you're predicting? Did it come earlier, and also do you think it's going to continue?
Yeah. So when we got into the space, actually more than 3 years ago now, we were quite excited about everything that was being built, right, in the blockchain crypto space. And obviously, Bitcoin is a big part of all of that activity, given its history, given its use case. And we were very convinced that it was only a matter of time, right, before the technology itself, gathered more broad-based adoption, and that eventually, institutions, financial institutions, will recognize the value of these assets, and what they bring to the sort of broader economy, and that was the underpinnings of what got us excited about the industry, as well as the conviction to start up Spartan. And I think that view or that theory has proven to be correct, and we're now starting to see that broader based mainstream adoption. We have people like obviously BlackRock, people like DBS Bank in Singapore, and a number of funds, as well as well-known fund managers who are now coming into the space and endorsing assets, and even companies are now starting to think about how they diversify their treasury assets out of the US dollar and allocate some portion of that into BTC and other crypto assets. So all of that development has obviously been very exciting, and something that we sort of foresaw would come even 3 years ago. And I would say that all of these developments have obviously accelerated the interest in the asset class and driven the price of Bitcoin, and that started a few months ago. But we think 2021, that's going to gather momentum, and we do see significant upside for the price of Bitcoin and other crypto assets.
Yeah, definitely. I felt like we've been trying to make noise, also with a lot of the traditional folks we know, and that this year has really been where they shifted their view right towards Bitcoin. So super exciting. So Jupiter, and because you're in Hong Kong, and the HashKey also has team members in China. So what are you seeing this year in China in terms of BTC's development, and and then as well as I guess other new developments out of the region.
Yeah. So this year, I mean 2020 or 2021?
Yeah, I guess 2020. Yeah, sorry.
2020. Yeah, I think maybe the BTC and other crypto asset play different stories in 2020, because we know that the DeFi space has been a long time blossom in 2020, especially in the summer, and people are more focused on how to develop DeFi. But for Bitcoin, as Kevin, you also mentioned, that it's more like a Western world play, that these institutional investors have been paying long time paying attention to this alternative investment asset. So in the last, especially in the 2020, we see that most renowned institutional investors has been rolling into this space, and they pay a lot of attention, and they pay a lot of money to buy the Bitcoin, especially at their portfolio allocations. But in China, I think the blockchain spaces, especially the community, is quite active. People are talking about how to build, how to scale, how to make more, versatile applications based on the blockchains. But the thing is that I think they are more, because the Ethereum ecosystem is quite high. We have too many tools in the Ethereum, and people will think that Ethereum may be the top one developing platform to develop DeFi, the kind of things. So now people are talking about DeFi, they think about the Ethereum, and they don't think about other platforms. So for Bitcoin, it's more like a asset allocation story, but for Ethereum, it's more like application developing kind of stories. I think there's a difference between the Western world and China, between institutional investor and between the developers of all the communities. So I think the crypto world has been so big that we have too much segment to develop in different lines. So yeah, it's kind of thing that we see that. Also, I'm based in Hong Kong. We see that in Kevin, you will see that in Southeast Asia, the regulatory framework has been a big jump in 2020. It's a very good news for the crypto asset, especially for the institutional investor who will have the potential or have the great interest to join these spaces. This is a thing that we are very delighted to see. So yeah, it's in the story here.
Right, thank you. So do you feel that because you mentioned that most of the DeFi or the innovation has been built on Ethereum the past year. Do you feel that Bitcoin will become a dinosaur as it doesn't have enough new innovation built on the blockchain, right? Because if it doesn't have, maybe it's what you were saying, this is a kind of gateway to digital currency from institutions, because it's been the longest, been in the market for the longest, proven its technology security for the longest. But if it's BTC stops having native applications or innovations on top, will BTC become a dinosaur? So in a few years' time, will no longer be relevant, right? Will be a lot smaller than other smart contract blockchains because it has just so much more built on it. I guess you can, Jupiter
sure.
maybe, and then Kelvin.
Yeah, expand a little bit. I think BTC has a very preeminent role in the DeFi spaces because here's one thing, that you want to develop DeFi, you need one thing, that is underlying asset. In the crypto world, if you only play Ethereum and other kind of Ethereum killers, the asset is not enough, because the most asset is in BTC. And you see that BTC's dominance is nearly 69% of the total crypto asset. So that's why we see people trying to introduce BTC into Ethereum. That's why we see WBTC has been a huge race in this year, especially the MakerDAO has been introduced WBTC as underlying and collateral asset. So people think the BTC is quite stable and the BTC is a quite good asset. It has the top tier liquidity in the crypto spaces. Other assets cannot have the same role compared to BTC. So the BTC, I think, even though there's no layer 2 or smart contract or other kind of development on the BTC, but BTC itself will be the cornerstone of the whole DeFi world. So that's why we see people still love BTC, because the BTC has strong correlation with the DeFi world. So that's why we see the BTC arise. So in the future, we see also other blockchains that we see Ethereum has a low speed, has low TPS. So they're trying to develop other DeFi ecosystem based on their own blockchains. But they forgot the BTC. The BTC is still the original power of whole crypto world, also the DeFi. So I think in the future, if we have some other ideas can spark the BTC assets in different ways, I think BTC still be the king of the DeFi. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with Jupiter. I think they have different use cases, right? And I think BTC's role in the crypto economy is very clear. And I think all of the institutional, as well as retail capital that comes into crypto, typically sort of looks to BTC as the first asset to own. So you can think of it as digital gold, as well as sort of underpinning crypto asset that drives the DeFi economy, right? And so so I think that's the role that you play. And eventually, I think with a platform like Ethereum, which is going through its own transition to Ethereum 2.0, clearly that serves a very different function in terms of the different kind of functionalities it brings, to the blockchain. And we will also see the proliferation of other types of layer 1 chains, like Polkadot, Blockstack, and Cosmos, and so on. And eventually, through these interoperability protocols, we will see these different chains link up, and eventually sort of create an internet of value. But that doesn't in any way sort of diminish the value or the importance of BTC, in my view.
Great. I think it's a very good explanation, and I mean, and you touched upon the BTC's role in DeFi. And Blockstack has been building a very unique, or in my opinion, very smart way of connecting security and connecting another smart contract platform with Bitcoin to make the Bitcoin applications or DeFi on Bitcoin a lot more native. So do you guys see that institutions who bought Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has proven, has at least over a decade of track record of both security and stability, do you feel they will see using BTC as a native DeFi application is more important than, or it's fundamental, or very important for them to use DeFi applications? Because DeFi is, as we know, past year, even though it has really taken, I guess, starting from the compound, I guess, liquidity mining until now, it has gone through several iterations and has gone through a lot of security breaches and different types of hacks, and it's becoming more mature. And also the liquidity mining has had several iterations, and it's getting even better than before. But still, it's still a very early stage and a quite experimental user experience, and I guess security as well. So do you feel for mainstream to adopt BTC and adopt BTC-based DeFi, they'll look for alternatives other than BTC building on another chain? Because you take the most secure assets and put it on a less secure chain. It's almost like, BTC is already, only 10 years. It still has, a lot of people still have questions about it. But for the ones who are kind of tiptoeing and buying them, now you ask them to send BTC or wrap it using centralized solutions or using a less secure or less, stable network. Do you think that will actually prevent mainstream adoption of DeFi projects and using their BTCs? I guess, Kelvin, you want to take this first?
Yeah, sure. I think crypto in general is still sort of in the early phases of adoption, and obviously for DeFi even more so, right? I think there's only about 1 million people, that interact with these DeFi protocols at the moment. So it doesn't have that widespread mainstream adoption, and part of it, I think it's less of a security issue per se. I think part of it is the fact that that awareness outside of crypto about DeFi is in general very lacking. And secondly, I think the UX UI also, for interacting with these DeFi protocols at the moment is still sort of in the very early development stages, and these applications are hard to interact with. You need MetaMask and so on and so forth, and just for the average person, it's almost impossible to use, right? I think that is in the process of being solved, and we will start to see some of these mainstream applications that are either fintech apps or other types of payment applications. They will start to integrate DeFi on the back end, and therefore open up their millions of or hundreds of millions of users to DeFi eventually, right? But obviously, to onboard that, you need not just better UI and UX, but you also need security, right? If, as you said, if people are concerned that their assets might be compromised or lost, then they are less likely to go for decentralized, to use these decentralized protocols, right? So I think obviously many of these protocols are still in the early stages. I think the longest ones maybe have been around for about 2 to 3 years. The newer ones, obviously, a couple of months, and so they've yet to be battle tested. I think it's less of an issue with the security of the layer 1 chains themselves, but more the security of the code of these DeFi protocols. That they may not have been properly audited, or they maybe have gone through audits, but there are certain security exploits that have not been battle tested, right? So over time, I think those things resolve themselves, and that will bring in more users.
Understood. Jupiter, do you have other views or? What's
Okay.
your, what do you think?
Yeah. I think, I agree with Kevin. I think in my point is that I think still we're talking about DeFi, we're talking about Ethereum, but I think the DeFi competition still in early stages has been a long way to the finalized. So I think we talk about the winner is too early now, because we know that Ethereum is still in the progress into the Ethereum 2.0,
Ethereum
right?
2.0,
But,
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
2.0, but still the whole plan will take at least maybe 2 to 3 years. We don't know what kind of other chains will be happen in the future, especially in this 2 years, 3 years gap, right? We see maybe Polkadot, other blockchains will go into these spaces and try to, to get some cut from the whole DeFi world. So I think it's still not finalized. Another thing is that for Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin, as I mentioned before, Bitcoin is still the top tier asset for the derivatives. We see that DeFi, we talk about DEX, talk about lending, and now we'll be seeing more the derivatives on the DeFi, right? So what is the best asset for the derivatives underlying asset? I think it's Bitcoin. So if you think about it in this way, that maybe in the future, because Bitcoin has highest liquidity pool, right? We see that the gold, right? We see the derivatives of gold, right? Because gold is quite good quality asset, and see the Bitcoin has the same role, that we'll see more and more derivatives on the Bitcoin, on this liquid asset. So I think Bitcoin still has the chance to getting some DeFi wind in maybe in 2 years, especially the Ethereum 2.0 still. We see that Ethereum 2.0, we see that layer 2 is still in the blossom way. That we see, and Ethereum have too many ways to get scale, but Bitcoin maybe has another way. So I think maybe Stack provide a alternative solution for the developer, also participate or other users to join the Bitcoin world in a different ways, but in a more secure, more smart, and more like a building way. So this is what I think.
Yes, I agree. I think you landed on a really big point, that DeFi is still so early, and we haven't found the best way to utilize BTC, which is really the majority of the entire market for crypto assets. That's why we are really excited about Stacks 2.0. I know there will be a Stacks version of BTC. Instead of wrap on Ethereum, you will wrap with Stacks blockchain and anchor it back on BTC. So eventually your finality, your security will be back on the original native blockchain. I think that's a very smart way to kind of transfer that kind of not only the security, but also the message, the information, the data to the original blockchain, which is why I'm really excited. And I want to see what new type of DeFi products can be built on Stacks. I think definitely some of the existing ones, like lending or exchange or DEX, can already, been built. But I think there will be more interesting ways to use Bitcoin once Stacks 2.0 launch. How about from you guys are both investors in Blockstack. Maybe Jupiter, like what are you very excited about, and what do you think Stacks should do, or maybe some advice for Blockstack to get better adoption, right? Because China is one of the biggest Bitcoin market, probably still the biggest right now, right? And it's such an exciting time to tap into that, that community, right? And then the early OGs in the space. Maybe you can give us some advice for Mainnet or for Stacks, and what they should, or even builders, right? Developers on Stacks, what they should do.
Yeah, I think the Stack 2.0 most exciting me. The point is that it introduced the proof of transfer. I think it's a good way to bootstrap is Mainnet, because mining, especially the DeFi mining in the last year, is quite a topic. Everyone see mining, they will rush into it and put their coin into or staking, they will got the yield. This is a thing that people has been accepted as the general rules. But for Blockstack, I think it also kind of provide the mining solution for Bitcoin miners, right? They got their Bitcoins and they can deposit onto the Blockstack mainnet. They will get the yield. It's a very good adoption ways to get the OGs into the stock spaces. So if you have OGs, you will have other kind of community members to join this space, but it's a long way to go because we see the miner developers still not the same group. But you see if OG go into these spaces, we'll see more the wind, the traction, the flows into the stack. I think it's a good start. And another thing is that China has the most active developer communities, but in the past years, they've been attracted to the Ethereum or to the Polkadot, other kind of blockchains. But if we introduce that you can use a BTC to have a developer work in the future, I think they'll be happy to see that because the BTC is you don't have too much education about the BTC on every common developers. They know BTC a lot. They heard of BTC almost every month, every week. You don't have some education cost. So the thing is, you may need a long time, but it's a good start. That's my point. Yeah.
All right.
I agree with Jupiter. In terms of some of these developments that we're going to see, particularly out of Asia, because I do think that Asia is a very active market for DeFi, and we do see a lot of activity out here, and certainly would be keen to work with the Blockstack team in terms of helping them to build a profile in Asia and the developer community here. The other perspective I want to share is the fact that I think one of the key sort of positives that people don't tend to focus so much on when it comes to Blockstack is the fact that they have actually made very steady progress, and they've actually taken a slow but steady path, right? Particularly from a regulatory point of view. And we may think that that's very trivial, and that the sort of extensive filings that they've made and the work that they've done, the SEC is very slow and extensive. But if you look at a project like Ripple XRP, right? I mean, they were at one point the second or third largest crypto asset, but because they chose to not work with the SEC and not sort of go down a proper regulatory path, and they are now sort of in the SEC's crosshairs, and the asset has taken a real beating, right? And that has compromised the future of the project. Whereas with something like Blockstack, there's assurance that they have the green light and the support of the SEC, and ultimately, if they are seen to be regulatory compliant, then developers and institutions would be more comfortable working with a project like Blockstack.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I was just reading that XRP has also been delisting from all the exchanges, and Grayscale is selling all this XRP and getting out of the position. And institutions will not ever touch this asset again, right? It's just a very, very little chance for them to come back. And I do think Blockstack have been the pioneer in this space to think on the long term horizon, and thinking this space is just its infancy. Have a long way to go. So I think our time is almost up. But since it's the beginning of a new year, and it has been such a strange, year that we just wrapped up, we would love to hear some prediction. Maybe just one, from each one, not too many, because I know we can do a lot of predictions. Maybe just one from each speakers today. Jupiter, you want to go first?
Yeah,
you start. Okay.
Yeah. So we're obviously. We've come off a very sort of strong 2020, right? Both in terms of activity and development in the crypto space, as well as price action. And we think that 2021 is going to build on that, and it's going to be, a very bullish year. So talking about, BTC, which we spent quite a bit of time on, we expect that, BTC will hit $100,000 sometime within 2021. And obviously, just given the interlink between, BTC and Blockstack, we think that that's going to drag the price of stacks up with BTC.
All right, sounds good. I think the stacks has already gone up quite a bit this year. I think people are anticipating a lot from the 2.0 launch. So yeah, I would love to see that. How about Jupiter?
Okay, I think in 2020 we see the BTC has been accepted by the mainstream institutional investors as an allocation asset. So in the 2021, we think mainstream financial institutions will adopt blockchain-based applications for their financial services to their clients. I mean, not only the permission chains will be adopting, they will be also adopting some permissionless chain in the future, especially the ones has a strong regulatory regime. Well, that's a lot of alternatives as the spaces. But I think we see that the news that OCC has accepted all the commercial banks in US to use the permissionless chain stablecoin to do the payment. So in the future, I think this gate has been open and will be wide and wide in the future. So we think about how blockchain going to mass adoption again.
That's very exciting time. Maybe I'll just have to say that I think private blockchain will just become eliminated. You will just all go on. It will just become a very small portion of maybe like internal in infrastructure, but most of the things will start to run on public blockchain. That'll be such an exciting time. All right, great. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for your time. And let's all hope we have a fantastic 2021, and hope to see you guys soon in person.
Yeah, thanks, Melody.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot. Thanks.